Hello, my name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago I did my things that I love about Booktube video, which if you haven't seen, I will definitely link somewhere because this is going to be a little bit salty and I do not want anybody to be under the impression that I hate booktubers or hate booktube or whatever. None of this is that deep. One of the great things about booktube is that we are a very low drama community, especially relative to the rest of YouTube. Sometimes I see people complaining about booktube drama and I'm like, girl, you clearly do not follow these beauty gurus because, oh my god, our drama is nothing compared to theirs. So none of this is meant to be that serious. Please do not get in your feelings in the comments because it is not my intention to offend anyone. It is your right to be offended and it is my right to accidentally offend you, but that's not the intention of this. This is coming from a very lighthearted place. But I do really enjoy people kind of making things that annoy me videos about whatever community they're in, because I do think it can raise some good points, and especially if it's not done from a place of kind of bitterness, I think that it can be constructive. So with that kind of light disclaimer being given, let's get into a few things that annoy me about booktube/booktubers. So I think I'm gonna start with some of the heavier ones and then move into some of the more lighter hearted ones, because a couple of these are a little more serious. So one thing that does really annoy me about a given channel is if every video that is made is a hashtag ad. And I think we're seeing more of these in booktube, and that makes me sad. There's a lot of that in other YouTube communities, and I think because booktube isn't a huge community, we don't have as much of it, but there are some channels now where pretty much any video that is made is sponsored. And I don't personally have a problem with sponsorships. I know that really, really bothers some people, and I understand that, and that's completely your prerogative. For me, I respect the hustle, and I actually think it's really great and cool that certain people in the community are getting those opportunities. I do not have a problem with sponsorships per se. I don't like it when people take sponsorships for things that they clearly are not that invested in, because I think you can 100% tell as the viewer that they're just making the coins. And I just don't think it's a very, it's meant to be a hashtag ad, and it's not a very good hashtag ad because it's not compelling to the viewer. So I don't like that. I also, what really for me crosses the line, I don't like this in any community that I see on YouTube, is when somebody will only make a video if it's sponsored, because to me that just says you're only in it for the money at this point, and it just doesn't make you seem very genuine to me. I just don't think it's a cute look. And again, I respect the hustle, and if that's a piece of somebody's content that they're putting out, it doesn't bother me. I don't always love it when 10 people are making the exact same video because they all have to use the same idea. That I don't love, and I wish more of them would be willing to say I will take the sponsorship, but I'm gonna come up with my own idea for how to do it. I wish more people would do that. But in general, my problem really becomes if every single video you're putting out is an ad. It just feels as the viewer, it's okay, well, I know what you want from me at this point, and I just don't know that I want to give it to you unless it's somebody whose content I just can't live without, and none of those people have ever been in that position for me. So ads in general, I'm okay with in booktube, but I don't like it if that's all somebody is doing. Another slightly more serious one is that I do think that booktube suffers from something that a lot of the internet these days suffers from, which is what I refer to as performative wokeness. Basically what I mean by performative wokeness is that there is a very certain set of kind of beliefs and advocacies and ideologies that the majority of social media kind of wants to champion. And the thing is, I actually don't disagree with that set of kind of principles. What I don't always love is when people seem to lose sight of why they believe what they believe and just sound like a robot of I enjoyed this book because it has X, Y, and Z types of diversity, and that is good, and we need more of it. Here's the thing. We do need more probably of X, Y, and Z type of diversity, but when it becomes so performative to me, where it's just the only thing that I'm getting from this is that you want to be somebody who is saying that they like this type of diversity, even if that's not genuinely how you are, but if that's what is communicated to me in the way you talk about that topic, it just feels really like you're trying to let me know that you're a good person who has those types of ideals. And again, I agree with those ideals, and I'm glad, like, in a way, it's kind of a funny thing to critique, because it's like, I'm glad somebody wants to be known as agreeing with things that I think are right to agree with. But I think that I just would like to see sometimes people being able to be a little more connected to the reasons why they think those things are important, and not just sort of spouting it off as rote. And I also think it can create sometimes some backlashes and some kind of drama that maybe is not coming from always the most genuine place. I have not read this book, and I am not a person of color, so I'm not going to speak on this. I'll just say that I think that Damien Enriquez, when he did his Things That Annoy Me About Booktube video, kind of alluded to some of what I am getting at when he was talking about his personal response as a person of color to the whole Carve the Mark, you know, drama, hoopla. I think that that whole drama comes a little bit out of this whole performative wokeness thing, and that's all I'm going to say, because again, I have not read that book and I am not a person of color, so I don't want to say that I'm speaking authoritatively on this. I'm just saying that's my impression, is that it does come from this place of like not wanting to be on the wrong side of an issue. And again, I think that's commendable, but I also think that sometimes people would do better having more quality advocacy than quantity advocacy, if that makes sense. So like, I would rather see someone being like genuinely excited about a certain kind of representation of one book a month than seeing them just like kind of at rote mentioning almost like a checklist of things that they're excited about in a book for like 10 books in a haul, if that makes sense. And I'm sure I've said something offensive in that whole thing, and I'm not trying to be offensive. If I am, I apologize. I'm just trying to talk about this idea of, I would love it if people were more, if they were able to communicate on camera more effectively their genuine feelings about something, as opposed to what they think their audience wants to hear. And, you know, it's so great that like we are talking about some of these issues that people have performative wokeness about at all, like, you know, racism, sexism, all the isms. I am very glad that people are like aware of that and talking about it, and I'm glad that publishers are getting the message that like your consumers care about this. And I think part of how that happens is that we do have these discussions on Goodreads, on YouTube, wherever. So like, I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to discount the need for that type of discussion. I'm more just humbly submitting that sometimes it's good to check in with ourselves about why we care that people think that we have a good opinion about this, and not just that people think we have a good opinion about this. And then the only other kind of like heavier or like a little bit more serious thing that does annoy me on sometimes here on Booktube is I think sometimes people are just trying too hard. Like, I think what's fascinating about the camera, both for still images and for video, is that it captures more than you think it does as a creator. I think sometimes when I watch my videos back, I see more about my feelings about something than I even realized I had at the time, just because your body language communicates so much, your eye contact and your expressions and your intonation, like there's just a lot that comes across in video. And I think sometimes people have this idea about what a successful booktuber looks like. And I think sometimes they're trying to copy what that person or that group of people does to be successful. And it just doesn't come off as genuine, and it doesn't come off as compelling. Like, it just sort of, it's like, okay, you're shouting at me right now, but that doesn't necessarily communicate genuine excitement. Sometimes that just communicates that you're shouting. Or, you know, trying to do too many like catchphrases or like little meme references or, you know, in jokes for certain fandoms. I just think sometimes it comes off as trying too hard. And what I would love to see people who are in that position doing is sort of just like, I mean, I think it's natural, especially when you're first getting started, like you're trying to figure out sort of who you are on your channel and like in front of a camera and everything. So I think that some of that is completely understandable, but like, I would love to see people sort of like relaxing and being willing to kind of not have to have like super manic energy or have super like always have to be the same person on their channel. And I think I don't want to be too name droppy here, so I'll just say I think there's a couple of the bigger channels where they've gotten to the point where they're almost like parodic of themselves because the passion doesn't feel like it's there. It just feels like they're trying to perform this kind of persona they have going. A great example of somebody who I think got caught into this and recently has tried to correct it from outside of the Booktube community is Graveyard Girl. If you didn't see that series of videos that Shane Dawson did with Graveyard Girl, I thought they were super interesting. But I think that's a lot of what it was getting at is like, you don't have to pretend to be this person. Like, it connects better with your audience if you're just like on some level being yourself. And that doesn't mean that you're always the exact same, but it just means like people can kind of feel it when you're trying to put something on. So anyway, I think trying too hard is just not a cute look, and like I would much rather people just sort of be themselves. Unless, of course, who you are sucks, and then make yourself better and then be yourself. I think I said that once in a different video, but like that is a genuine piece of advice because people are, sorry, this is a side note, but people are always like, oh, be yourself. And I'm like, okay, be yourself, but also like have some self-honesty and self-awareness. Like if who you are is not good, like fix, or parts of you are not good, fix that and then be yourself. So that's my only caveat. Okay, so those are the only like heavier things that I have on here. The rest of these are just like pure pettiness. So like get your popcorn and enjoy me just like being a brat. Okay, first, I am not a grammar Nazi. Like, I know that I misspeak and I give people like grace to misspeak. Like, nobody's perfect, and part of the enjoyment of YouTube is sort of like the feeling that you're just with a friend and like that it's not super rehearsed. But there are some people up here in these booktubes who do not understand how certain words work or do not understand how to pronounce certain words. Pronunciation-wise, the biggest pet peeve I have, and again, like I know people who do this and like I still love them, but it does annoy me. People who pronounce the word library as lie-berry, it just, every time I'm just like this is not a Barry who tells lies. This is not a Barry who is very basic. This is a library. There's an R in there. The other one that like is a word confusion and it like this one really does like get on my nerves is people who do not understand the difference between the word wary and the word weary. Weary means to be tired of. Wary means to be leery of or apprehensive about. And they have similar enough meanings that I understand why some people misuse these, but the number of times that I've heard somebody say, I'm very weary of this particular book because I'm afraid it's not going to be good, and I'm just like, you mean wary? You're wary of it. You are not weary of it because you are not tired of it because you've not read it yet. Like, sorry, that really is the bottom, like that is the lowest level of petty that I have on this list, and it does work my nerves. And there are, I will be honest, I have unsubscribed from some people who like consistently cannot like have certain types of like grammatical errors or vocab misusage because if it's consistent, it does really start to bother me. And again, in general, I'm trying to be pretty forgiving of that, but like there's some people, man, who like, I really enjoy their content, but they cannot communicate it in a way that doesn't just make me go, ugh. I also don't love it when somebody is 100% only doing Frontlist stuff. So yeah, I don't really like it. And I guess I don't like that on an individual channel basis. So like if somebody's channel is only Frontlist, that gets me a little bummed because like, I don't know, it just makes me feel like they're only reading what the publishers are trying to make them read right now. And I will say, I understand why people are so focused on Frontlist because like there is, I guess, just more sort of like native excitement and like, you know, it's easier to get sort of a groundswell of interest in something when it's new and shiny and it's being released, like we're all getting it at the same time. But in general in Booktube, I do wish that we were less focused on Frontlist because the cool thing about books is that they're evergreen and like sometimes like some of my favorite books that I've read in recent years have been from 100 years ago. Do you know what I mean? And like, it was a delight to experience for myself why this book has been enjoyed by like literally generations of people at this point. And there's just so much good backlist out there. Like there's so many good books. It's not just the ones that are being newly published. And a lot of times people are really disappointed by newly published books because they were trying to read it when it first came out, they didn't get the opportunity to like really hear from people like giving their consensus of things. Because I gotta tell you, some of the things that have been most hyped on Booktube since I've started watching nobody talks about anymore because they weren't good. And like, I get to enjoy not having wasted my time or money on them because like I tend to be more of a backlist reader than a front list. And that's because I got to hear people's opinions and realize like this actually isn't that great. So yeah, I think in general in Booktube, I do wish we were less focused on the front list because it does make us somewhat puppets of the publishing machine, to be totally honest. And I do also just think that it drives this it does drive, I think, a kind of consumeristic thirst for the new, better, more. Whereas I do think that if you're more willing to have a mix of front and backlist, it kind of puts the brakes on that acquisitive feeling because it's not something new and shiny that everybody's really hyped about at that exact moment. It's something that you genuinely have had to like seek out and like have a reason why you're trying to do it. So anyway, that's just my opinion, but I do wish that we were less focused on front list. And like I said, channels that are like almost 100% front list are some of the ones that I'm least interested in at this point. On like an individual channel level, a couple of things that annoy me is when I come across somebody who is completely soft-spoken and flat on camera. And I try to have some grace because I know when you're first getting started, it's hard to figure out how to be comfortable in front of a camera and like literally talking to yourself. Like right now, there's nobody in this room. It's just me. I'm just looking right at you guys in the future, hello, and just trusting that this is going to be some kind of communication. But I think some people never get there, and like I'll watch them, and sometimes these are people who have like thousands of subscribers, and I'm like, but how? The only thing I can think is that some people like to listen to Booktube as sort of like ASMR type stuff, so maybe that's it, but I'm like, you are so boring on camera, and I'm sure you're super nice, like I'm sure you're lovely, but like I'm so bored right now and have nothing to connect to with you. Another kind of individualistic thing that can annoy me is if I'm watching something and realize we have 0% taste overlap, and that like annoy is probably too strong. It's just more like, I don't want to watch this anymore, but like that's always a bummer when you come across a channel that you want, like everybody really likes, and you're just like, I don't like anything you like, and I don't even necessarily like the way you're talking about it. So yeah, this is a missed opportunity for me. Oh, another kind of, well, I guess this is just something in general that I have seen on Booktube. So I'll call this a trend, though it does happen at a channel to channel level. I do get a little tired of the emphasis in Booktube on kick-ass heroines. I also am annoyed at the general acceptance of the idea of an unlikable heroine. And I get both of these essentially because come from a place of me not liking the misogyny that's underlying them. Because kick-ass heroines usually, not always, like when I find a genuine kick-ass heroine, I'm into it. See my obsession with Kate Daniels. But a lot of the time that is a version of manic pixie dream girl. It's like the I'm so cool, like I am bitchy and don't care, blah blah blah, and like they're still being fetishized for their like differentness and uniqueness and not like other girlsness. So like I don't really like the general Booktube fixation on that type of heroine, because I honestly think it's basically just a different flavor of manic pixie dream girl, which I also don't like, and I think we're good generally at calling those out and not being into it. So I don't like that. And then the unlikable heroine I think is so often code for she's just a little too aggressive, or she's just a little too ambitious, or she's just a little too bossy. And it's basically like misogyny of like, she's unlikable because she's not being the kind of girl that she's not being a nice girl or a good girl or whatever. And again, I think it's a little internalized misogyny often, but like, that's just, it annoys me because I feel like it's often just like not coming from a great place. And I wish that those two types of heroines weren't so talked about on Booktube, either in a positive or a negative way. And then finally, this is a little get off my lawn-ish and a little like hand-wringing-ness. And I also should say, also hypocritical because I do these videos. So fully acknowledging that. I wish we weren't so focused on hauls and unboxings. I enjoy watching hauls. I don't really get the box thing. I know that people really enjoy them. I don't understand for books the fixation on boxes. I can understand it for something like Book of the Month Club, like I did a review of that. So like I kind of get where that comes from because you have some control over the book. I guess I just don't really understand unboxings and like why you're wanting to get book related candles and like bath bombs and whatnot. Like, again, I know people really love this, so like I'm not trying to yuck your yum. I'm just saying, like, me personally, I don't understand them, and I don't always love that there's such a premium placed on them content-wise on Booktube, and likewise for hauls. I actually really do like watching hauls, and I like making them, and I know everyone else does too, so again, I'm a hypocrite for this, but like, when you really think about it, what do you learn from a haul? I guess well, okay. You do learn, I think, somebody's taste. Sometimes. I think if it's somebody who actually has distinctive hauls, then I'm more into it, but I do think a lot of people's hauls tend to be really similar. See my previous discussion about the emphasis on Frontlist on Booktube, because I think that, like, if you're somebody who's hauling like from the used bookstore, or like you're somebody who reads a lot of backlist, or you just have like kind of a very niche, unique reading taste, then hauls can be a little bit more interesting. But like, if you're watching somebody haul the newest Sarah J. Maas book, or you know, the latest Cassandra Clare book, or V.E. Schwab, or like, there's a few sort of like usual suspects, and those were all kind of more YA ones. But like within any of the subgenres of Booktube, when there's a big release, everybody's gonna be talking about that. And so it's just like, do you really have anything that new to say about this? Like, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Again, this is me just being petty, so like, and a hypocrite, a petty hypocrite. But it does, like, when I think about it, I do get kind of annoyed that we're so focused on that, on the like kind of acquisitive aspect of being a book lover, and you know, in contrast to the fact that like book reviews don't get nearly as many views. Now that being said, I was having an interesting conversation with Leanna and Bethany about this recently. Book reviews actually do get quite a few views over time because it's like more like evergreen content. So I think that whole criticism, like, nobody's watching book reviews, is somewhat wrong in terms of like, not as many people watch them initially, but over time people do watch those book reviews. But that being said, like, in terms of like what will get initial views, like if you're like on a given day, if I released a book haul and a book review, I will probably get 4 times as many views on a book haul as I do a book review. And them's the breaks, do you know what I mean? But I do sometimes feel like a little sad or annoyed that we're so focused on like acquiring the books and not always as focused on actually reading them. And maybe, you know what, that really is the part that like maybe gets me a little confused about the enjoyment of like book related candles, because I'm just like, is this really enhancing your enjoyment of the book? And maybe for some people it is, but for me it just feels like this feels like an opportunity for somebody to make money off of you for something that you love, and I guess maybe that doesn't feel that great to me. I don't know. Anyway, all that to say, I don't always love unboxings. That was a very long way to say I don't always love how many unboxings there are. I think honestly because I'm not into them, and I would rather, if that person's making 10 videos in a month and 2 of them are unboxings, I just wish that those 2 unboxing slots were for something else. That's just my personal opinion. So yeah, that was my petty, salty video. Again, as I kind of disclaimed at the front, I'm not here trying to come for anyone in a super real way. Booktube is in general a very lovely place. See my things I love about Booktube video, but those are just a couple of petty things that do annoy me from time to time. So definitely let me know what you think in the comments. I'll keep an eye on things to make sure everybody is minding their manners, because that's all I really ask in the comments. But yeah, definitely if you have any good-spirited discussion or critique, feel free to leave it below. And yeah, I think that will do it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I think that will do it. I hope you're having a really great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!